If your baby wakes up crying like a tiny offended smoke alarm and then refuses to settle, your brain instantly goes, "Great, sleep is canceled forever." And then you start doing the midnight math. Is this a regression? Is it teething? Is it trauma? Did I ruin everything because I rocked them that one time when I was literally falling apart? Hi, I'm Treasure, and I help exhausted, high-performing parents get out of the guessing game and into a calm plan that actually fits real life. Let's start by taking one scary thought off the table. A baby who wakes crying and can't resettle is not being dramatic on purpose. Your baby is communicating, and our job is to decode what kind of problem this is so you stop throwing random solutions at it. Here's the first truth that calms most parents down. Crying at wake-ups usually means something is either uncomfortable, overwhelming, or confusing for your baby's body right at that moment. And when you're already running on fumes, that crying can feel like an emergency, even when it's a fixable pattern. By the way, if you want a clear step-by-step map for your baby's sleep without the internet chaos, download my free guide, The Modern Parent Sleep Roadmap. The link is in the video description and on the screen. Now let's talk about what's really driving this, because there are a few common patterns that create this exact problem. One big pattern is timing. When babies are overtired, they don't just fall asleep and stay asleep. They crash, then pop back up upset because their body is working too hard to stay asleep. And the tricky part is, overtired can look like sleepy. It can look like easy bedtime. It can look like finally they went down. Then you get that intense crying wake up and you're like, wait, what? Another common pattern is the opposite. Your baby is not tired enough at that time, so they fall asleep on momentum, then wake up mad because sleep pressure wasn't strong enough to carry them through that next cycle. This is why I don't want you obsessing over one wake up in isolation. The wake up is the symptom. The schedule and the bedtime setup are usually the cause. Here's another pattern that's incredibly common and very fixable: sleep onset confusion. If your baby falls asleep one way and wakes up in a different situation, they can panic. So if they fell asleep on your body, or with a bottle, or with heavy rocking, and then they surface between cycles in a quiet crib with none of that happening, some babies do not gently think, "Oh, cool, I'll just continue sleeping." They protest loudly. That does not mean you can't comfort your baby. It means we want sleep to feel more predictable to their brain. Same vibe at bedtime, same vibe when they wake. Now let's bust a myth that keeps parents stuck. This isn't your baby manipulating you. Babies do not wake up and think, "How can I ruin my mom's life before her 9 a.m. meeting?" They wake up and think, "Something changed, something feels off, help." Another bucket is discomfort. Sometimes crying wake-ups are as simple as hunger, gas, reflux, discomfort, a wet diaper, temperature, or being in a phase where they are extra sensitive to sensory input. And if you have a baby who seems more sensory sensitive or easily startled or gets worked up quickly once they're awake, it's even more important to keep nights boring and consistent. Not cold, just boring. Now let me show you what helps starting tonight without turning your home into a sleep boot camp. In the moment when your baby wakes crying, your first goal is not to create perfect sleep skills at 2 in the morning. Your goal is to help your baby calm down in the least stimulating way possible while you gather clues. So you respond, you keep the lights low, you keep your voice calm, and you keep your movements slow. Think sleepy energy, not pep rally energy. If your baby is safe and not in distress, give a tiny pause before you swoop in. Not a dramatic pause, just a few seconds to see if it's a quick cry between cycles or a real wake that's escalating. If it's escalating, you go in and comfort, but choose one comfort path you can repeat, because repetition is what teaches safety. For some babies, that looks like a hand on the chest and steady shushing. For others, a brief pickup to calm, then back down before they're fully asleep again. For some, especially younger babies, feeding may be appropriate if it lines up with their needs and your pediatrician's guidance. What I don't want is the frantic rotation of every soothing tool you've ever seen on the internet, because that turns the wake up into a full-blown event, and your baby starts fully waking more often because the night becomes interesting. Now let's talk about the smallest changes that make the biggest difference over the next few nights. First, zoom out to bedtime. If bedtime is chaotic, everything overnight gets harder, so we simplify bedtime and make it consistent. Same short wind down routine, same sleep space cues, same white noise if you use it, same general timing. If your baby is waking, crying, and cannot resettle, I want you looking closely at that last stretch of the day. Is the last wake window too long and bedtime is landing in overtired territory? Or is the last nap ending too late and bedtime is too close, so there is not enough sleep pressure? You do not need a perfect chart, you need a pattern that makes sense. If your baby fights bedtime hard, takes forever to fall asleep, or has false starts, that often points to timing being off. Next, look at what happens right as they fall asleep. If your baby only falls asleep with intense help and then wakes crying and searching for that same help, you found your leverage point. That doesn't mean you stop helping overnight. It means you slowly shift what falling asleep looks like so your baby can connect cycles with less panic. And here's the part most parents miss. You don't have to change everything at once. You pick one tiny shift you can actually sustain. Maybe you keep rocking, but you rock to calm and then finish the last part in the sleep space. Maybe you feed, but you add a tiny pause after the feed so bedtime is not only the bottle and blackout. Maybe you keep holding, but you shorten the holding time by a small amount every couple nights so your baby is practicing settling in the space where they will wake up. If this feels like the part where you always get stuck, I want to tease one key insight that changes everything for crying wake-ups. The goal is not zero crying. The goal is a predictable pattern your baby can understand. And that's exactly where personalized support can save you weeks of trial and error. I have a master's in social work, I'm a certified pediatric sleep consultant, and I'm the founder and CEO of Rested and Renewed Pediatric Sleep Consulting. I'm also a toddler mom, so I get the emotional side of this too. If you want a plan tailored to your baby and your real schedule, you can book a consultation through Rested and Renewed, and if you're not ready to book, start with my free Modern Parent Sleep Roadmap. Now let me give you the payoff to that insight, because this is the fastest way I see parents get relief. When a baby wakes crying and cannot resettle, consistency beats intensity. A calmer, repeatable response usually works better than bigger and bigger soothing. So decide what your night response will look like and keep it boring and steady. If you do pick up put down, do it the same way each wake. If you do in-crib soothing, do it the same way each wake. And if you're feeding overnight, make sure you're feeding with intention. If it's truly hunger, you feed and you feel good about it. If it's not hunger and it's become the automatic reset button, you can still be gentle while you gradually shift that pattern. This is also where environment matters more than people admit. If the room is too cold, too hot, too bright, or too quiet for a baby who startles easily, those between cycle wake-ups can turn into crying spirals. And I'm going to say this kindly and directly. If your baby is waking, screaming, and you keep changing the whole setup every night, your baby never gets a stable signal that sleep is safe. Pick a simple setup and keep it consistent long enough to see what it does. Now, here's when I'd stop guessing and get extra support from your pediatrician. If your baby has a fever, signs of breathing difficulty, persistent vomiting, unusual lethargy, or crying that seems like pain, do not treat this like a sleep problem. If you feel in your gut that something is medically off, trust that and call. And if your baby is younger, not gaining weight well, or you have concerns about feeding, reflux, or discomfort, you want medical clarity alongside any sleep changes. But if your baby is healthy, safe, and this is an ongoing pattern that keeps repeating, you are not stuck forever. You're usually looking at timing plus sleep onset confusion plus a response pattern that accidentally became the only way your baby knows how to settle. And the good news is that combo is very flexible with a calm plan. If this already helped you feel less panicked about tonight, the next video is where you get the missing piece that makes the whole night feel more predictable, so you're not bracing for the next wake up like it's a jump scare. Tap the screen to watch my next video.
Before you go, download Treasure's free guide, hit subscribe, and watch the next one. You'll be so glad you did.